Hey everybody, welcome to 10 Backward. I'm your host, Ron McAdams.
And I'm James Rohling.
Hey James, how are you doing this week?
Oh, I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
Doing okay. Hey, let me tell you what, man. We just watched my favorite Counselor Troy episode.
Oh, was that? This is your favorite. This is it.
This
when
is
it comes
my
to Counselor Troy episodes.
Yes, I like this one even better than the one where she turns into sexy grandma.
Oh my God, I haven't seen that yet. I can't wait to get to
Don't
sexy
worry.
grandma.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get there, and then you're gonna get there. Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
I'm afraid now.
Yeah, I would be. It's always good to have a little bit of fear about sexy grandma in the Troy family. So, but oh my gosh, this week's I gotta tell you though, I really do love this episode just because, like we were talking about last time that we were together, that this is sort of like X-Files Star Trek.
Yeah, it really is. It's another Brendan Braga, and directed by Cliff Bull. Yeah, Brendan Braga. And this is episode 18, season 7, Eye of the Beholder. And I was just, you don't really get a whole lot of value sometimes out of the Deanna Troy episodes, but I felt this one just had so much to it.
Oh yeah, no, I really do like it because it's something that they don't normally do, and it's kind of a theme episode because they deal with suicide and this sort of I say supernatural element but Star Trek is like we explain it away with science, that it's that there's all these like is it a ghost, is what's going on, like we don't know for sure, and then they explain it all away in like 3 sentences, which is fine, but we'll get there when we start talking with the episode summary. So do you want to launch into it?
This is a good one. So it starts off with Riker and Worf. They're at the control room of one of the nacelle tubes, and one of the plasma injectors just is having trouble shutting down, and they're going to have some trouble with the ship if they don't get this thing shut down. They arrive to this nacelle tube, and they see this lieutenant named Dan Kwan, and he's about to jump into this plasma stream that's just sitting there. There's a lieutenant named, her name was Nara, at the station, that she was unable to shut down the plasma flow because something was going on. They just weren't able to shut it down. So Worf is like,
he had like locked out the controls or something like that.
And I always thought it was weird too. Like they had opened this security door, which there's no secondary like force field to stop people from jumping in or any kind of issue of accidents. I thought that was kind of odd. Like there's no second or third or fourth way of stopping issues like this from happening.
Well, they say that there's a blast door that comes up, and then there's a quote force field, and it's like, but it's not really a force field because you can just like put your arm right through it if you really wanted to. It makes me think that the people that designed this nacelle tube are the exact same people that designed that little control booth on the Death Star. Because there's just like, if you remember from Star Wars, there's just like 2 dudes standing there next to like a huge pit, and there's just like a laser beam flying by. It's like, obviously the galactic whomever were like not really big into OSHA.
No, not at all.
Like they were, no, it's hey, you're gonna lose 2-3 technicians a week falling down this pit, but
I just want a railing.
That's just the cost of railing kills is like a whole other thing, man.
But anyway, Worf tries to override whatever security measures that were keeping the door open. I don't even know if it was a security measure. I think the door just wasn't closing because of something this Lieutenant Kwan did. But they don't really get into that.
Yeah, he like stuck a penny. He like stuck a penny in the rail so it couldn't come back down. And then the janitor is like pissed at him for like 6 seasons or something over it.
So
crazy.
Riker climbs up to this catwalk and tries to get this guy. He tries to talk the guy down. Like, Kwan starts talking about how people are laughing at him. And I know what I must do. He kept saying, I know what I must do. Worf gets control back, but there's no time. Kwan just jumps into the plasma stream, and that's it. Like, everybody's shocked that a suicide happened aboard the Enterprise.
Yeah, and not career suicide like when Denise Crosby left the show.
No.
But like an actual member of the crew killed themselves.
Yeah.
And I watched that and I'm thinking, Riker is standing right there. He could have just like jumped over there and got him, or Worf could have like hit him with the phaser on like stun, and then Riker could have been like, okay, well, don't fall into the beam. Could have reached up and grabbed him or something. I don't know. It just they could have scienced this away, but they sure didn't.
It seems like they minimal effort, as minimal, like, hey man, don't go in there, please.
Yeah,
right.
I know.
I guess you wanna, maybe. All right.
Yeah, I don't know. There's fun things out here. It's like a big green screen effect. You should check it out, man.
Right.
So, but that slams us like right into opening credits, and then we got Act 1. So Captain Picard is like, of all my time that I've been a commanding officer in Starfleet, I've had to notify families about like deaths. Anybody wearing a red shirt on the old series, but I've never had to like tell them about a suicide. So Riker and Troy, are both there, and they're like, hey, we knew the guy a little bit because, I was just up there doing like a performance evaluation and he seemed really nice, and they don't understand why he could have actually killed himself. But Picard decides to put Troy and Worf in charge of the investigation, because if you remember, what we have seen in subsequent episodes is that there's a little bit of a sort of a fostering sort of love thing going on between these two guys.
I started calling them the odd couple.
Yes. So it's another excuse for these guys to be stuck in the same scene together. So, right. But anyway, they decide that they're going to try to help him make sense of what happened. And so they go ahead and it's like, I'm going to give you permission. Go ahead and go through his personal logs, look at that drawer under his bed that, it kind of has a weird smell coming out of it, and didn't want his roommate to look in there, but, you guys, I'm giving you permission. So down in engineering, Geordi is like, talking to Picard about the damage and things like that. And he's like, hey, we're going to get this all fixed up so that we can go ahead and, make it onto our mission, which was like deliver. It's one of those like plot, convenience things where it's right. Like, hey, don't worry about it because we're going to get this fixed up just in time so we can go on our mission. And it was to deliver like medical supplies or something.
Yeah.
But Starfleet says, or I think Picard is like, hey, Starfleet says that we can exceed like warp limitations. And he's like, that's cool. We can totally go warp 9.2. And I'm just thinking, that's not right. That's slower than the limitation. But anyway, and you'll learn about the limitations in upcoming weeks, why they put limitations on. So, but anyway, Data and Geordi start having a conversation about suicide, which is like kind of a reoccurring theme in the episode, where people are talking about, it's like, why would any life form decide to kill themselves? And basically it's like Geordi is like, well, maybe life is too hard to live for some people, and you can only take so much, and so you just have to decide what you want to do. And Data kind of tells this story where it's like, when I was first developing and I was building my neural pathways, every time that I had like a new task to take on or a new thing to learn, it made the chances of having like a cascade failure like that much greater. And that I finally just decided that, it would be, instead of looking at all these things as like an insurmountable obstacle, look at it as a challenge to overcome. And so it's like, hey, like maybe that's good advice for other people as well. But Troy and Worf are checking through all the personal logs, and they don't see like any kind of like, basically he's like, hey man, it's 2 Scoop Friday down in 10 Forward, totally gonna meet my friends there after work. And so he's talking about this in his logs. He's talking about this relationship he's got with this other ensign on the who works, I guess, in she's a doctor, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
So he's like, I got this great girlfriend. It's like 2 Scoop Tuesday. So, things couldn't be going any better for the Quanster. And so they're like, this isn't somebody that would take his own life. So there's more going on. He doesn't seem like the type to commit suicide. And that's what people also continually say about him during the episode. He just didn't see the type. So, so they decide, Troy is like, hey, we better go up and look at the nacelle, and we need to go ahead and see, talk to his supervisor up there and just see, like, maybe if she noticed anything. So they go up there to see what's going on. And Troy is like checking out the console where he worked, and she kind of has this weird feeling, and she goes up on the catwalk and stuff where he actually jumped to his death, and she has this like weird, overwhelming sort of psychic episode where she basically kind of wigs out for a second and almost falls over the catwalk. And I think, is it Worf grabs her or something like that? There. Yeah, and then it's like dramatic sting, and then we cut to commercial.
Yeah, I something that struck me was when they talked to Kwan's lady friend, the ensign Maddie Calloway. Mm-hmm. She seemed way too calm about this whole thing. Like, oh, he's dead? Oh, okay. That's all right, I guess.
Yeah. See, actually, now that you say that, that does make sense, because she was kind of like flat about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, that's a real pisser, that my boyfriend's dead, and it's like two Scoop Tuesday down in 10 forward.
With the Matter creators, it's always 2 Scoop Tuesday, man. The other thing I thought was interesting is there's no like real investigators on the Enterprise. Wouldn't they have some kind of like not military police, but I don't know, some form of like judicial investigation?
Do not give the NCIS people any more ideas for series, man. That's already like 15 hours a week of shows on CBS. They don't need space
totally
cops.
Do space cops. Oh man. All right. Gosh. Well, let's get into Act 2. This is where it really starts to move forward quite a bit. So Troy goes to sickbay to be examined by Dr. Crusher, and Dr. Crusher does some tests on her and realizes that she has an elevated psilocybin, which is some kind of I don't know, some kind of brain thing you can get when you experience too much psychic stuff. They're kind of vague with what. Yeah, they're really vague with what it is and why it's bad. They just say, "Hey, you don't want this; it's bad." And so, 4 hours, you'll be fine. Mm-hmm. We'll whip up some kind of antibiotic. Meanwhile, the Enterprise has arrived at this other starbase. They've obtained all the medical equipment they need, and this other mission that's happening while all this is going on is underway. But you really don't care because you don't really get to know what the point of it is.
Yeah, it's just some kind of backdrop. Yeah,
it is. It's kind of odd. So Worf goes to Troy to try to talk to her about what's, this whole investigation they're going on. She's not finding anything really relevant in any of Kwan's logs. So they talk about, maybe this was nothing. Maybe it was just something weird. But then she starts talking about her family and how she remembers the old fireside tales her grandpa would tell, and the only way she could remember those things is if she was sitting next to the fire. She doesn't really remember them anymore.
Is that like foreshadowing? Oh my gosh.
A little foreshadowing, yeah. And at the same time, Worf starts talking about, his own experiences with this kind of stuff, and then you start to see something kind of go between Worf and Troy. Like, whoa, is this happening right now, you and me? And Troy leaves to go to 10 forward, and Worf leaves. Sorry, Troy stays in her office. Worf leaves to go to 10 forward, and he sees who else but that scamp Riker having a drink with another lieutenant. Uh-oh. And he's wearing like this weird kimono type robe thing.
Yeah, he looks like like she called and said, "Hey, do you want to meet me for a drink?" And he was like, "Listen, I already got my night clothes on." And she's like, "Well, just come anyway. It's the future. No one will be able to tell the difference."
It's so true, because he could have either been doing his like the cast could have been practicing for their staging of the Mikado, or he's just sitting there having a drink. You don't know the difference. So he's sitting there. Worf and Riker get into this funny little discussion about, so if you were into that girl, I would have to talk to you first if I wanted to date her. And Riker's like, "Who are you talking about?" And Worf's like, "Who are you talking about?" And then Worf just is like, never mind. I got to go check on the security of the ship and stuff. So he beats it out of there. It's a weird thing because Riker even says something like, "You're starting to sound like you're asking me if you can date my sister, man." And Worf's like, "Oh, what?
Well,
what?
is she seeing anyone?
Well, no." Worf's like, "What, security? I'm out of here."
Yeah. Sorry, gotta go.
So later, Troy goes back to one of those nacelle tubes with Worf, and she starts having these visions. And she sees a vision of a woman like pleading with her life, and then a vision of a guy that's just like looking kind of in middle distance, not really doing anything, just standing there. And then she starts to look around, and she sees that she's alone. Worf is gone, and things are a little bit different. And the plasma stream's not working. There's construction stuff everywhere, and there's a box labeled Utopia Planitia that's laying on the ground. And that's pretty much, she calls out for Worf and slam right into Act 3.
Yeah, so she's like having like some kind of psychic episode now where she has traveled back in time to the construction of the Enterprise. So Troy, she climbs down the ladder and she goes back and she's like trying to like kind of get a bearings of her surroundings and things like that. And she opens up a door, or I think she hears like a sound on the other side of this door and opens up the door. And there's a man and a woman that's like standing inside. And it's the people she's sort of seen in her vision. And they look at her and they notice her and they start laughing at her. And she's kind of really taken back by that. And she spins around and she bumps into Worf. And now it's like everything's back to the present and everything is all set back to normal. So basically then they call a meeting in the observation lounge. And here is, I think it's Troy and Data and Picard. They're like crowded in next to each other, and like Worf is standing in the background with his arms crossed. Like it's a really weird blocking for the scene, but they're like, well, it's clear that that she had some sort of episode, and this is something that was happening 8 years ago, because again, this is the 7th season, so 8 years ago is when it would have been assembled. The Enterprise would have been built, and it's but she's seeing this vision through somebody else's eyes. So the initial thought was that because Lieutenant Kwan, the guy who jumped in the thing earlier, was like half human, half alien, and these aliens have like some sort of psychic abilities, that maybe that there was like an impression in that space when he died, and that's how she was able to see through his eyes, maybe. And they're like, well, it's a possibility, but, I don't recognize these people, and these people don't work on the Enterprise. So, but maybe there's part of this vision where she sees this guy and he's standing there and it's like her vision's all fuzzy. She's like, maybe I do kind of recognize this guy. So Dr. Crusher is like, hey, I'm going to boost your dose on this inhibitor so that way you can stop having these weird out-of-body experiences. So time goes by. Troy gets on the computer and she's like going through the logs and all the personnel files, trying to find like who would have been, on the Enterprise maybe now, and also worked at Utopia Planitia. And she finds she finds this guy who would have been there named Walter Pierce. And she's like, oh my gosh, that's the guy from my vision. So Worf and Troy go down to engineering to question the guy. And he's basically kind of standoffish. And he's like, like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I don't remember any of that. And I don't know what to tell you. And Troy is like, well, I can tell if you're lying. So if you want to tell us anything, you need to come to me. And he goes, okay, well, I will. And so they have like a little kind of a conversation where Worf is like, how did you know if he was lying or not? And it's because you've got the inhibitor. And she goes, yeah, I was bluffing and all that. And they have a little poker conversation. And then they go back to Troy's quarters and have an actual poker conversation. Yes. Cha-ching! And so they're, I guess Worf finally seals the deal, puts something in the captain's log, and the next morning he makes breakfast for them. Okay. And so they're sitting there on the bed and they're kind of smooching. And then Worf gets a call about this medical stuff, like these medical supplies that require extra security on the Enterprise for some reason. And then also Dr. Crusher contacts Deanna. So they're trying to kiss, but then they can't because they keep getting phone calls, and then they smooch, and then it drops straight to commercial. Thank God.
So a couple things here. When she was at the computer, trying to search through the database for crew members, Worf had this look on his face like, you're doing it wrong.
I know. Yeah, did he say something like, well, did you search alphabetically or something?
Maybe you should narrow your search.
Narrow your search. She's like, that had occurred to me to think to do that. Thanks for explaining it to me.
And then it's like the takeaway from this episode: Worf is terrible at poker.
Yes.
But yeah, so we go into Act 4. Like you were saying, they kiss. I think he spent the night. I mean, that's heavily implied that they did more than just having a long kiss. He makes breakfast, which is, I was like, what the hell, man? This is just,
it's going to be crazy
weird.
Based on what Klingons eat. It's going to be
right.
There's like one of those little blue whales, and it's eggs, but they got scorpions coming out of them.
Here's some snack worms.
Yes,
but they get all those calls. Troy goes back to this the control room with Data and the Nora, and she looks around and she notices a bulkhead that was in her vision, and after Geordi removes it, he detects human DNA behind this bulkhead. She gets another vision of a woman being attacked, and Geordi reveals that there's a skeleton behind this bulkhead somewhere. In sickbay, they sequence the DNA. They find that it matches one of the people that she was searching for earlier, named Marla Flynn, someone from her vision, the lady who was laughing after the man and woman that were kissing, that was laughing at Troy during her vision. That's who that's Marla Flynn. I've seen her before, both on the computer and in my vision. So she's like, something's not right. Something doesn't match up to what's happening here. And maybe it's not Kwan I was seeing these visions through, but it was somebody else, but I still can't get my hand on what's happening. And she what was it? She looks at the computer panel and she sees a vision of herself and oh my God, it was a reflection. I saw in this vision. It's Pierce. Pierce is who I was looking through, and Pierce has to have some kind of telepathic abilities because I couldn't read his emotions, and because I see him in these visions, which it kind of doesn't really make any sense because she sees other people in these visions too, but whatever.
Well, I think that they're trying to throw you off a little bit off the scent, because it's like there's some kind of psychic thing going on, but it's like we're not 100% sure who this is happening to or when, but
yeah. So Troy and Worf go to ask Pierce some questions, and on the way, Troy's like, are you sorry for having been with me? Because you look like you're getting a little touchy with Calloway. Worf's like, no, I don't. And, what's wrong? And Troy says, oh, this inhibitor, I don't feel like myself. And so Worf is like, you know what? I'm going to go question him alone. Go to your quarters. You wait. You just go rest. And so she goes back to her quarters, and just after arriving there, Pierce shows up. And there's that, there's that shot, reverse shot, reverse shot with the tension-filled music.
So we drop straight into Act 5, and Troy is like, security! And so a couple security officers show up, and Pierce is like, Worf told me to come here. And she's like, why would he tell you to come here? He said he had somewhere to be. So she's like trying to page him. She's like, Worf, white courtesy phone. Worf, white courtesy phone. He won't pick up. And so Troy is like, asks Pierce where Worf is. And he was like, oh, well, I think he had to go somewhere with Ensign Calloway. So they, the security people start she's like taken to the brig. So they take him away, and Troy runs out to go find Worf, and they gets down to Ensign Calloway's room, I guess, and does a security override to open up the door, and she goes inside, and there's Worf and Ensign Calloway kissing, and it is kind of a replay of the vision she had with the lady whose bones they found, and it's just like they're laughing at her. And she's like, oh my gosh, she's just outraged. So she reaches over, and Worf, I guess, laid his phaser down. She picks up a phaser and shoots Worf and kills him. And Ensign Calloway runs over there, and she's like, oh my gosh, you killed him. And she's out of her mind. Troy is, with grief and anger, and she is just going nuts. So she runs out into the hallway, and she bumps right into Lieutenant Pierce and the two security guards, and Pierce looks at her and says, you know what you have to do. And so I guess she knew what she had to do, because she starts running off through the hallways up towards nacelle control, and she's climbing up all the little ladders up through the Jeffries tubes, floor by floor by floor, and she makes it all the way up to the catwalk. She opens up the door, the blast door, and she's looking out under the plasma beam, and she's like, I know what I have to do, which is exactly what Quan had said right before he killed himself. So just as she's about to jump into the plasma, that's funny, Worf grabs her by the shoulder, and she spins around, and it's revealed that her uniform has changed, her hair looks right, everything is exactly kind of how it was the first time that Troy and Worf went up there to investigate. And it turns out all of the preceding events were just a hallucination, going back to that initial sort of vision that she had when she got to the spot where Quan committed suicide. So I know it's like, oh, it was a dream. So the investigation's over, and Troy is telling Picard in the observation lounge about that she thinks that Quan had been affected by the same sort of telekinetic sort of energy that was, in that space, and that's why he killed himself. And they do some more sort of investigation, and they sort of come up with the idea that Pierce had found out that his girlfriend, Marla Flynn, was having an affair with someone else at Utopia Planitia. And then he had killed them and then threw their bodies into the plasma stream to cover up the murder, and then had a bunch of remorse, and then he jumped in. So Star Trek, instead of just having one suicide, it's two suicides and two murders. Way to go, Brandon Braga. So let's leave it on a high note. So they think that the reason why that there was this telepathic sort of resonance in there, because they do a bunch of investigation about Pierce, and they found out that his grandmother was from Betazoid. So, Worf is like, you seemed really surprised when I pulled you out of this hallucination, like that, that you said like, oh, thank God you're alive or something like that. And Troy is like, well, it's you died in this vision. And he was like, oh my gosh, like that's really something. Who killed me? And Troy is like, well, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Do, 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 do. And she walks off the bridge. So it's
leaving Worf to be like, who says that? I'm not from Earth. I don't understand your phrases.
I do not understand your idioms, woman.
Oh, you know what they say? I conk you over the head and take you with my ponfar.
I guess, but I forgot to mention that that you remember they found the skeleton like behind the bulkhead, and when Geordi was scanning it, it just looked like, oh, there's just like a anatomical skeletal model behind this wall. Well, they go up there and they scan it later, and there was nothing behind the wall. So that was just part of her. Yeah, that was part of her vision or whatever.
So when she and Worf went to go talk to that guy, what was his name? The one who was like doing all this, the one who killed himself, not Quan, but the one who killed the two guys, Pierce.
Right.
So was Worf also a vision? Because Worf was there when she was questioning Pierce the first time.
Yeah, but he died at Planopia Utopia Planitia. So he died there too. So all that was still part of the vision. So basically anything between her going up on the catwalk and then Worf grabbing her shoulder up on the catwalk was Star Trek jerking you around. So
they really didn't have the badoink-a-doink.
No, that was dream badoink-a-doink.
Thank God. It's just a weird relationship because I remember even, was it in Act 4 when they were talking on the elevator, he's like, because they're talking about, what do you think of this person? And, they don't concern me. And it's almost like he's like telling Troy, like, oh, you loved that scamp Riker. Are you sure you want to get with this?
Mm-hmm. I guess.
And it's, I don't know. It's just, you're right. They do kind of jerk you around, so it's hard for me to like. Now that you're saying it, I'm like, that makes sense. Now I'm seeing it that way, because there are parts where I'm like, is she going in and out of this entire hallucination, or just parts of it? But it kind of makes sense now.
Well, they kind of play it fast and loose with that thing anyway, because it's kind of an Inception sort of deal. Because she goes into the trance when she's up there on the catwalk, and that's when her little vision starts. And then inside her vision, she goes into another vision of another vision, and it's just like, it's supposed to kind of throw you off a little bit, so you don't know what's really real.
Hold on. I feel like we're doing this wrong. Let's just start over real quick. I'm going to do this. Oh, you're not doing the.
Is that what I was supposed to do? We're doing the Inception music.
Oh no, I thought you were gonna like restart the. Yeah, I was doing the Inception music. I was gonna have you like reread the entire like. All right, here's what happened. She went up on the thing.
So, but my favorite part is when Worf comes down and he spins the little top, and it kind of wobbles, but you don't really see it fall over. So, is it really?
Well, that wasn't his real totem. The wedding ring's the real totem. The top's the misdirect. Yes. This was actually a decent episode. I was actually surprised. I don't have a whole lot to argue with it. It's a very solid episode. There are some small things like you were talking about with the skeleton and the thing, and it's like, oh well, there's no skeleton now. But I mean, if it all gets explained away by it being a dream.
Yeah, the whole thing was a vision. It was Star Trek jerking you around. But I still love this episode because it's a strong Troy episode that doesn't make her weak. She's like a detective trying to get to like the bottom of a story or the bottom of like a mystery. And there's kind of that supernatural element with these ghosts and things like that, or these visions and phantasms, and you don't really know if this is something that's really happening or if it's something in her mind. And they kind of screw with you because it's the Lieutenant Pierce is like there on the Enterprise, but he's also in her vision. And yeah, I don't know. I really like this one. I would definitely recommend that people that kind of listen along on the podcast would, if you've not seen this one, spoiler alerts, but you should have go back in time and watch it and then listen to the podcast.
The highlight of this entire episode is definitely is there someone in particular you're talking about? No. Is there someone in particular that you would rather I not be involved with? Mr. Worf, you sound like you're a man who's asking if he could start dating his sister. No, I was merely... Never mind. Excuse me, sir.
Right. Which is funny because...
That is one of the most entertaining
Because
parts.
then all that is also happening in Troy's vision, too. So this is a hell of a vision because it incorporates elements of scenes where she's not even there. This is a rich world that she built for herself.
Wow. All right.
I know. So, one thing about this episode is the lady that plays the lady that gets killed, Marla Flynn. That's actually Marina Sirtis's stand-in for a lot of things.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
So anytime it was like unit, it's like they called Unit 2 in, for lighting and things like that. Yeah, that was the actress that they had come in and do that. So she actually got. I don't know. Does she even have a line? I think she just laughs.
Yeah, I think she just laughs too. I don't think she has a line.
Yeah.
And this one was directed by Cliff Bole, who is who has directed several Star Trek episodes.
Yeah, still makes the very worst sort of like protein bars you can imagine. But makes some decent episodes in Next Gen. Yeah,
he's also really mean to Will Wheaton.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I'm looking at something right here that says Cliff Bole was one of many directors who treated Will Wheaton condescendingly on the set, and he was the worst offender.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's poor Will. I hope that he's still listening to the podcast because, we've not been kind to him recently, but
that's not really through any fault of his own. It's more a fault of the writing.
Yeah, no, it is. He'll tell you as much. So again, you got to read that, Transmissions from the Future. What is it called? The book where he basically it's like an episode guide for the first season. It's like Memories of the Future. That's it. It's actually, he goes into that a lot where it's just like, I just wasn't treated very good. I tried. I did my best, but I just wasn't treated very good. So anyway, you got any other funny makings about this episode, James?
No, just watch it. It's a good episode.
Yeah, no, I do like this one a lot.
Let's see what is coming up for the next episode. It is called Masks. And
oh wait, that's Flash. Sorry.
While investigating a rogue comet, the cultural archive concealed inside begins taking over the Enterprise. And the little picture I see is Data with a mask on his face.
Yeah. And get ready because this is the episode where the quote archive starts using replicator and beaming technology to reconstruct the Enterprise into a ancient temple. So there's parts of the Enterprise that are just made out of rock. It's just thank God that rock is totally airtight, or otherwise we'd all be dead right now.
I'm scared.
So yeah, I would be. This is really this is going to be a painful episode next week.
Well, thanks for walking me through this joy of an episode, Ron.
Oh yeah, this one was great. This makes up for next week. So anyway, thanks everybody for joining us here on 10 Backward. I'm your host, Ron McAdams.
And I'm James Rohling.
And we will see you next week.
Bye.